Back, everyone, here to Live Now from Fox. I'm your host, Mike Patient. Always great to be with you as we continue to roll on. Want to go out live to Florida. Governor Ron DeSantis honoring Washington's birthday on this President's Day. He put on X earlier today saying, "Today we honor President George Washington and his legacy. No American was more integral to the nation's establishment and survival than Washington, and no American has meant more to the nation throughout his history." Its history. Washington led a revolution to establish a republic in which no man was indispensable, a government of laws, not of men. This is ironic because Washington himself was the exception to that rule. He was truly America's indispensable man, without whom the young republic would have crashed and burned, first in war, first in peace, and first in the hearts of his countrymen. Now let's listen to Governor Ron DeSantis live in Florida.
Role of foreign powers' involvement in the Western Hemisphere. And it became known as the Monroe Doctrine, which he defined as a principle in which the rights and interests of the United States are involved, that the American continents are henceforth not to be considered as subjects for future colonization by any European power. And so that has been something throughout the years that it's kind of waxed and waned. You know, now with the Maduro snatching, Monroe Doctrine has been reinvigorated. And we're now really taking, as a country, taking a lot of stock in what's going on in our own backyard. And I'll tell you, it's been bad for many years. I mean, you go back 4 or 5 years ago, there were more Marxist governments in the Western Hemisphere than at the height of the Cold War, including Trudeau's government in Canada, which was not very good. And I had a lot of people fleeing from Canada during COVID because of the draconian measures that they were taking. So now, though, you're seeing Argentina. You know, you see Maduro move in Venezuela. You know, you see some of these elections that are happening, and you're starting to see the tide shift. But I think it's clear that we are not going to allow people into the hemisphere. It was the right policy then and remains the right policy now. And there's not many things you can say over 200 years ago were laid down, and that we should continue kind of doing the same thing as they did then, because times change, different things. The tax policy of 1823 is going to be different than the tax policy 200 years later. So I think it was very visionary, and I think it was very consequential. Now, we've placed this statute here along A1A in Monroe County near the remnants of Henry Flagler's railroad bridge. The statue is situated alongside the Straits of Florida and Gulf Stream, the passageway first charted by Benjamin Franklin. It is part of the newly named Spotswood Heritage Trail, named for the late former Monroe County Sheriff and State Senator John M. Spotswood. He was a community leader at the time when President Harry Truman called Key West his winter home. We've put money, the state has put money into refurbishing, you know, that winter White House. Eisenhower also stayed there. He had, during his presidency, he had a heart attack, and he went to the winter White House in Key West to recuperate in the 1950s. So this park, along with portions of the Florida Keys Overseas Heritage Trail and Coupon Bright Aquatic Preserve, will now be part of the Spotswood Heritage Trail as well. So James Monroe's legacy is built on service, sacrifice, and vision. His Monroe Doctrine established our country as the guardian of the hemisphere. He obviously had huge impact by making sure that Florida became part of the American Republic. We're proud to honor him today. I think, are we going to hear from the speakers and then do this? Well, I'll tell you what, why don't we unveil it, and then we'll call up Cord, and we'll call up these other guys. Go ahead. There you go, guys. All right. Handsome devil there. He looks good. All right. All right, Cord.
Well, good afternoon, and thank you, Governor, and thank you to Monroe County. This is Florida weather. This feels like Florida, so thank you for doing that. But you know, one of the things that people don't often think about is the Florida's significance at the founding, and that's why we've billed our 250th anniversary initiative as the 14th colony. So we're really telling that history. And James Monroe understood the strategic importance of Florida, which the governor reiterated in his remarks. And it is fitting that on July 3rd, 1823, Monroe County was named in his honor. Every mile of coastline and acre of our beautiful landscape serve as a monument to a president who saw the potential of Florida, its resources, and its strategic geographical placement as an asset to the building and protection of the nation. And today, just as in President Monroe's era, Florida continues to play an important role on the global stage, with Florida leading the way and setting the pace for the rest of the country, and our commemoration of America 250 is no exception. And when I was preparing for today, I always like to have a quote or two of who we're discussing, and I really like this one from President Monroe. He says, "Our country may be likened to a new house. We lack many things, but we possess the most precious of all, liberty." And that is why the governor has built Florida the free state of Florida. We are the free state of Florida. We are the free people, whether it's under COVID or even today. We're leading the rest of the nation, and we're really leaning into 250 and the celebration. And really, it's incumbent upon us, the older generations, to teach our young people about what's happening. Last week, we had the Duel of Daytona, which was a NASCAR race on Thursday night, along with the Florida Department of Transportation that sponsored that event. And then we had the Great American Race yesterday. On Friday, along with the Florida Department of Environmental Protection, we broke ground on the new museum at the Ullustee Battlefield, which was the largest Civil War battlefield that happened in Florida, and honoring the men and women who served our nation. As part of that 250 event, speaking of veterans, we have a veterans program at the Department of State where we're touring the state, memorializing and recording our veteran stories, so we have that for posterity. I want to thank the artist who's here, Austin Weichel, who brought the statue from Colorado, personally traveled to Colorado to bring it here. So thank you, Austin. And I know you're going to get Coolidge done ahead of schedule for us. So I want to thank them. And I also want to thank, obviously, the people at FDOT who put the concrete here, and our fantastic team at the Department of State. This was probably going to be our most difficult statue to put up, but I can't think of a more scenic and beautiful place for people to pull over and honor this great president. So just once again, thank you for your time. Just whatever you do, follow us on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram. Share these stories. Every single day, we're putting up another Florida 250 story. We have an amazing history to tell, and we're going to be doing it the entire year. So thank you. It's an honor to be here with you today.
We should get like a little sign on there. We will. Yeah, we will. Brian?
What a beautiful day in the Florida Keys. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks so much for being here. And thank you, Governor. It's a privilege to be here on Big Pine Key as we continue our mission to rightly honor our country through monuments of the people who built it. And today's a double celebration. We're observing a state holiday to honor George Washington's birthday, a man who declined the crown to give us a republic. And we're also honoring another giant of our founding era, James Monroe. Over the last few years, we've seen a trend of bad faith, politically motivated demonstrators attempting to tear history down. But in Florida, we lead by putting statues up. We don't equivocate America, we celebrate it because we're a good, decent, and just nation founded on exceptional principles. And through this statue series and our all-in commitment to America's 250th, Florida is setting a national precedent for reigniting patriotism and civic education. We're not just building monuments, we're building a foundation for future generations to understand the scarcity and value of liberty. And by bringing these founders back into the public square, we are ensuring that the spirit of 1776 is not a distant memory, but a living part of our civic life. And Florida, through our enthusiastic semi-quincentennial observances, is looking to set the tone that our American heritage is something to be acknowledged, to be preserved, and to be celebrated. So it's only fitting that we stand here in Monroe County, the 6th county in the Florida Territory, named after, of course, James Monroe, our 5th president, who was president when this county was born. And he was a founding father, as the governor said, who played a very important role in our country, who's fought for a strong Bill of Rights and positioned America for hemispheric dominance. And in fact, Florida exists because of President James Monroe and the actions he took to negotiate the Adams-Onis Treaty, to acquire the Florida Territory, and then under his leadership, ultimately see through to the territories being established on March 30th, 1822. And it remained a territory, Florida did, for 23 years until finally admitted as the 27th state on March 3rd, 1845. The county, as both the governor and the Secretary of State mentioned, has been around since July 3rd, 1823, and of course, it's a beautiful place to visit. At its inception, it was a titan stretching from the dry Tortugas all the way north to Lake Okeechobee. And since that time, Monroe County has really symbolized the natural beauty that Florida has to offer. President Monroe was a decorated hero in the American Revolutionary War and an integral part of the conversation that shaped our nation. And so we honor him here today for his service to our country. We're excited, I'm excited about everything that Florida has in store for America 250. And this celebration is also a reminder that our work at Visit Florida exists first and foremost to serve the residents of this great state. Tourism is the heartbeat of Florida, but it's the people of Florida who reap the rewards. In just a single year, the tourism industry generates about $134 billion in economic impact, creates $36 billion in tax revenues, and saves each of Florida's households nearly $2,000 in federal, state, and local taxes. And as the governor mentioned, we're very pleased that our preliminary data just in shows 2025 visitation records exceeded 2024, and 2024 was a record-breaking year for Florida. So we're so pleased that visitation continues to remain strong, and we're proud of the role that we play in that. Visit Florida is working with the governor's office and the Department of State to make Florida the premier destination for observing America 250. So if you're looking for the right place to celebrate, the invitation is open. Come to Florida. Pick up a driving tour map at any Florida Welcome Center to explore historic sites from St. Augustine all the way down here to these very keys. And check out America250fl.com, a centralized hub where we are compiling and sharing 250th celebrations and opportunities for engagements across every corner of our state. And Visit Florida is also offering co-op marketing opportunities for local entities to advertise their 250 celebrations. We're also working on a new docuseries about Florida history designed to entice visitors and residents alike to join our celebration. And this multi-episode series will highlight our state's legacy of innovation, achievement, and history while celebrating the unique stories of cities throughout Florida. So thank you, Governor DeSantis, for your commitment to rightly honoring our country. And thank you, President Monroe, for your efforts that made Florida a part of this exceptional nation.
Great. Well, I think this is great. I told Cord, so you got a little placard there. I want to get something on here too so people can see. So we'll get that done and make that happen. And it's great. So it's because I'm down here Saturday night. I spoke at the Everglades Foundation Gala, and they honored Jack Nicklaus, who's a friend of mine, obviously a great golfer, but he's been great Floridian for many, many decades and has been involved in this, big fisherman, all this stuff. But we were able to talk about 7 years ago when I said we were going to do all this for Everglades and water, and then what we've done, what we've actually done. And the reality is we've done more than I promised. And, most people promise and under-deliver. That's typically, what these people, they run for office and they chirp, and then they get in, and it's like they forget what they campaigned on and don't necessarily follow through or just can't get it done. So the 4 years before I was governor, there was $1.5 billion allocated for Everglades restoration and water quality. In the 7 years that I've been governor, we've done over $8 billion for Everglades restoration and water quality projects. And you see the difference in Florida Bay because we have more fresh water moving south through the Florida Everglades. Yeah, salinity levels are better than any time in modern history. That affects boating, that affects fishing, that affects a lot of different things. We've been able to construct reservoirs on the east and west sides of Lake Okeechobee, which have obviated the need for them to discharge algal bloom water into those estuaries, which really impacted our coastal communities there. The southern reservoir, we have now have a major agreement with the Trump administration where the Army Corps of Engineers is delegating to Florida some of the projects as we do it quicker. So we're doing some of the auxiliary projects. Army Corps is doing the main reservoir. If they fall behind schedule, then we can come in and supplement it. But it was originally scheduled to be done in 2034. 2024. Now, because of our efforts and the agreement with the federal government, completion of that's 2029. And so that's basically, within 10 years of me taking office. I don't think people thought it was possible to do a project of that scale, given where we were, where really hadn't much had been done for us to then go forward and do all that. And so there is more to do. But we've got incredible momentum. And, my view on all of it was like, it's just something that we have to do. It's the right thing to do. I also understood the importance it is to Florida culture. I also understood the importance it is to make sure you can provide fresh drinking water to millions of people in southern Florida. But I also thought it was good for the economy to do Everglades restoration and to really focus on water quality. And I think ultimately all this will end up paying for itself over the long term. I'm very, very confident of that. But that's a good success story. We obviously got more to do, but we're going to continue accelerating these things and really getting the job done. But if we were here 7 years ago and I was at that gala and I told them that this is what we would do in 7, most people would have thought that was good, but they would not have thought that that was possible. And so I really appreciate everybody that's been involved in that over the years. This is the largest environmental restoration in the history of the United States of America. It does deserve it. And, it's a little more complicated than just like filling a couple potholes, right? I mean, this is a massive infrastructure project. Now, one of the things that we've also worked with that supplements those restoration efforts is trying to weed out these Burmese pythons, which are invasive and have really done a number on a lot of the ecosystem there. They have no natural predator. So we've done things like we do a big python hunt competition. We've partnered with private companies who will pay people to go in so that they can then get the python skin and make wallets and belts and boots and all this other stuff. And the number of removals have really gone up dramatically. But the freeze was something that, ultimately these pythons, they can't have sustained periods of time with freezing temperatures. And, it's very difficult to know exactly, what happened to the number because it's a massive footprint and these things burrow. But I can say that our people that are smart about this, they did notice mortality amongst some of the smaller pythons, that they had seen them. We don't know if that means that the bigger ones survived. Did they burrow down? Because if they can burrow down for a day or two, then come back when it's warmer, that's probably fine for them. We don't know. There may be more, but we're going to continue our efforts to do the removal. Now, the iguanas were falling from the trees like we've never seen before. And people, we think that there were tens of thousands of iguanas who didn't make it to the other side, of that storm. It's interesting. When I tell people this, in other states who may not know what goes on in South Florida, they're like, oh, they're so cute. I'm like, if you live down there, they're pests, they're invasive, they eat things, they ruin things. And so we don't want iguanas taking over like they have. So this is going to be a noticeable major setback for their population. And I know a lot of Floridians were collecting, our FWC was willing to accept them and just make sure that moved very smoothly. You do have a right to handle these iguanas yourself. You have a right to do that, protect your property, all that. But for people that weren't comfortable doing that, we had that. So that was a major event that has dramatically reduced the population. Now, look, I don't know how quickly these things reproduce or everything. I know the pythons reproduce very quickly, and that's part of the problem. That's why if you're hunting, they really should give more for finding the eggs than finding one python, because these eggs will lead to a lot of new pythons, and these moms, they churn out these eggs all the time, and that's really what makes it difficult. But we've had a lot of success, and we're going to continue to build off that. And we've done a lot for the Florida Keys specifically over the years, putting forth a lot of resources. I don't think there's been another governor that's invested more in the Keys than me. I don't think it's even close in terms of what we've done. Reverse osmosis, area of concern, job growth grant fund, different things that we've done. It's a unique part of Florida. It's not always easy to get around. You got one main road. It's hard to find. You got some of the best rest. This whole stretch Like, I mean, like you go, like any little hole in the wall is going to have great seafood. I mean, just amazing. And when people ask me, like, you know, where's a good place to eat in Florida? I'm like, look, there's a lot of good stuff. But I say, if you just go to the Keys, you will not go wrong. Literally, you just pull over on the side of the road, you know, and find something. And we've got great tourism in different parts of the Keys. But, you know, it's like, it's hard to find housing for people to work in all this stuff just because, you know, most of these nice houses people have bought over the years, especially since COVID. So the values have gone up. So it's harder to afford. And I know there have been a lot of work on making sure there's an expansion of workforce housing, which is integral to the economy. And I know we've been helpful in that. So, you know, look, we've really enjoyed being able to help out down here. We got more in the kitty, but it's been fun. And I know there's people from all over the country that yearn to come down and spend some time in the Conch Republic. And so we're going to keep it great and make it even better. All right. Thanks everyone for coming. It was a lot of fun. Appreciate it.
All right. So Florida governor wrapping up there, probably only in Florida where you could talk about Washington, Monroe, and then in the same sentences talk about iguanas and pythons that you're trying to control there as well. So we brought that to you right here on Live Now from Fox. Also, President Trump putting out on Truth Social earlier today saying, Happy President's Day. Prices and inflation are way down. The stock market and your 401ks are way up. Our military is strong and powerful. Our law enforcement is great, and our border is 100% secure. Murders dating back to the year 1900 and crime are at record lows, and our country is bigger, better, and stronger than ever before. Working hard, enjoy your day. President DJT announcing right there on Truth Social. All right.